Start with the problem that is Joe Biden. Not for me, but for Democrats in this country today. The questions are intensifying about Joe Biden's ability to continue not just for a second term, but to continue right now, to finish his first and only term, maybe continue for the next 10 minutes or so. Because we've now learned that Biden advisors are joining Senate Democrats for a special meeting addressing the president's condition. He'll be at a site away from the Capitol campus. It doesn't bode well for the president now, does it? It's going to happen Thursday, we're told. And this all started because of Joe Biden's failure on the debate stage June the 27th. And it was not just Joe Biden's inability to function, but it was magnified and compounded because Donald Trump challenged Biden on several points. And honestly, the president could not respond. He could not manage a coherent retort. And the best two lines came with the Trump punchline, hammering home the problem with Joe Biden. And it came into focus. Here's one.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country.
Nobody knew what he said, Joe Biden included. Now, the Biden campaign has been in free fall ever since. In fact, it is safe to say that the Democrats have lost every single news cycle since Biden's complete and utter failure on stage because everyone saw what happened. They saw Donald Trump fillet the defenseless president repeatedly. Here's another reminder of how that debate went. Listen.
All those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our health care system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare.
Now, what actually happened right there is Donald Trump, with some help from Joe Biden, beat the Biden campaign to death, all on live TV on June the 27th. And not only have Biden and the Democrats lost every news cycle since, like I just said, but the real problem is now showing up in poll after poll after poll. In fact, there's not one survey now of American voters that has Biden winning. Not one. Almost every poll has showed a movement toward Donald Trump by 2 points, and in some places quite a bit more. Yes, Donald Trump was winning, so the debate, not a knockout punch, but a serious gut punch to the re-election campaign. Joe Biden is on the ropes, and everyone knows it, except for, well, Joe. And he refuses to let go, to concede that his days in the White House are over. And honestly, that should happen right now. Not in a few hours or a few days or a few months. Right now, that should happen. But unless he accepts his fate and steps aside maybe tomorrow, there's not much the Democrats can do. Biden has pledged delegates. He is the nominee. And this is truly dangerous because, as you first heard here weeks ago, Joe Biden, I believe, has a form of Parkinson's disease. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can hear it from the people that spend their days studying this, the people that really know. On MSNBC, of all places, a board-certified doctor that specializes in Parkinson's disease gave a blunt and damning assessment of Joe Biden's condition. Here it is.
Because he has just such classic features of neurodegeneration. I mean, word finding difficulties, and that's not, oh, I couldn't find the word. That's from degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering, though. Could that be part of that, too?
No, this is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemma dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
Rigidity, loss of arm swing, standing up lordically. You notice when he turns, it's kind of end block turning. It's not a quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold hypophonia. A small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
From across the mall. So we all know what is happening, and by now so do most Americans. But Joe is hanging on, or maybe I should say Jill is hanging on to the office and the power for dear life. So With Joe refusing to leave, at least so far, the anger starting to set in some corners, as longtime supporters and outspoken advocates are now calling on Biden to step aside, despite his refusal to do the right thing. People like George Clooney, James Carville, and Colorado Senator Michael Bennet are among those saying it's time for Joe to go. And another longtime Trump critic and Biden supporter, Michael Moore, says the ongoing push to keep Joe in the race, despite what we all know now is wrong. In fact, he says that it's worse than just being wrong. He says what is happening is elder abuse and more. Here he is.
Imagine that was your father up there. What would you want to? I'm thinking, why isn't anybody doing anything? Why didn't they do it? Why did they even let him go out on the stage in this condition? Who was looking out for him?
Yeah.
Who's looking out for him right now? George asked those questions like I said, and he had to ask it 3 or 4 times. Will you just get a checkup, a medical evaluation, a neurologist? Something doesn't seem right. And we're not doctors, but each of us, all of you watching this right now, have had or have in your life 4 grandparents and 2 parents. There's at least 6. You've got step parents and step grand. We all have seen the decline of the people we love.
If you've lost Michael Moore, you've lost the Democrats for sure. And in another obvious sign that Biden's campaign is listing badly and could sink altogether, came from the Cook Political Report just yesterday. Cook Political is a left-leaning organization that favors the Democrats. And that means what they're saying now is even more damning, more dangerous to the Biden campaign. It moved 5 states on Tuesday toward Donald Trump and away from Joe Biden. Arizona went from toss-up to leans Republican. Georgia went from toss-up to leans Republican. Nevada, the same. In Minnesota, went from likely Democrat to just leans Democrat. It's in play. New Hampshire, the same, went from likely Democrat to leans Democrat. It's in play. Plus, in the state of Nebraska, their 2nd congressional district, it too went from leans Democrat, from to leans Democrat, from likely Democrat. And with the president attending NATO meetings and refusing to step aside, it leaves Democrats in it's a bad place. Do they stick with Joe or do they jump ship? So far, 7 House Democrats have bailed and at least 1 senator, with Senator Blumenthal sounding like he is ready to bail out too. That could happen at any moment. And it makes me ask plenty of questions. It should. Remember that old Hillary Clinton campaign ad asking you who you'd like to have answer the phone at 3 a.m. if there was an emergency? Well, that question has come to the forefront again, and it should. I mean, nobody's driving the bus. This is an emergency. And we are all at risk with no leadership in the White House right now. This country is in danger. There's nobody in charge. And the media finally asking the questions that, they must be asked at this critical time, like, what happens if the nation is attacked with a nuclear weapon and Joe's in bed? Listen to this.
Well, he also said he's sharpest before 8 p.m. So say that the Pentagon at some point picks up an incoming nuke. It's 11 p.m. Who do you call? The First Lady?
He has a team that lets him know of any news that is pertinent and important to the American people. He has someone, or that is decided obviously with his National Security Council, on who gets to tell him that news.
Yeah, he has a team to do that. We elected a president, whether we did or didn't. There is a president. That's the job. But despite falling poll numbers and the American people rejecting the old man, more than 70% saying Biden should not be running for president at all, but running he is. And that means some in his circle and in Congress have no choice but to say they're riding with Joe Biden. What else are they going to say? Janet Yellen, for example, continues to claim Joe Biden has shown no decline in his mental abilities. Of course, based on her performance, it's clear she needs a cognitive test as well. I mean, how would she even know if Joe's sick? Anyway, here she is.
As a cabinet secretary, have you noticed any mental or cognitive decline in any of these meetings?
The president is extremely effective in the meetings that I've been in with him. That includes many international meetings that are multi-hour, like his meetings with President Xi. I've met with him, with other leaders who are in.
So are you testifying that you have not seen any mental or cognitive decline?
Mr. Chairman, point of inquiry. She's not a physician.
Now, you cannot tell me Janet Yellen and others in the inner circle have not seen a mental decline in Joe Biden. We've all seen it. Clearly, these people are just lying. They're just lying. And do you notice as we get closer to the elections, the lies become more and more obvious? I mean, they're just blatant about it. Here is another notorious liar, Chuck Schumer, trying to defend old Joe, but just barely.
As I've said before, I'm with Joe.
Senator Murray, who just left, made a statement last night saying that she believes that Biden needs to do more to demonstrate that he's strong enough to defeat Donald Trump, articulate a vision, and must seriously consider the best way to preserve his legacy. Do you agree with her sentiment?
As I've said before, I'm with Joe.
So Joe is here to stay at least for a bit longer, especially if Karine Jean-Pierre has anything to say about it. Here's what she said.
I think him being out there and Americans seeing him directly, being able to touch him and ask him questions and see him face to face, I think that matters. And so, look, we're going to continue to move forward and do what we have to do.
Yeah, the Democrats have a Joe Biden problem, and the thing is, they all know it. Every single one. You can't tell me Chuck Schumer actually believes Joe's the best shot to winning, but what can they do at this point? They created this situation. Now, I have a feeling we're seeing a lot more twists and turns in this election. Again, that big meeting coming up tomorrow. We still have a few months to go. And Joe and Jill Biden don't seem to be leaving, at least willingly. And even if they do, the Democrat policies are the real problem. Just like Joe, they're weak and old and dangerous. It's time for a change. Who's with me?